With free next-day delivery from Staples, you can run your business like a pro. You can guarantee the marketing department that they'll get their supplies tomorrow and guarantee the accounting department that they'll be delivered free. With free next-day delivery, you'll have the ability to move deadlines up and adjust budgets down. Go to staples.com and get the office essentials you need delivered next day for free. Staples. It's pro time. Orders over $49.99. Placed by 5 p.m. Excludes weekends and holidays. Eligible items only.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sin Chat Corner. So very excited that I was able to reschedule my dear friend Dina Wilcox to come on today. Always very excited when I'm interviewing fellow authors, especially authors from New York City, which, if you know me, you know my heart is just wrapped around New York City. That's all I can say. So without further ado, because I know Dina's been holding around here, let's get her on the show and get going. Hi, Dina.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
How are Well, I'm okay. I actually sent you a message a little bit ago. I wasn't sure if you got it or not. So
no, I didn't.
We'll chat about that.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's quite all right, actually. I was just sending you a note to let you know, and I should let the listeners know this. There's a possibility that I might get preempted after the first half an hour of our interview. I have penciled in for 60 minutes, and I'm not sure if you knew that or not. But I might get dragged away after the first half. Yeah, and I might get dragged away after the first half an hour to get to my son, in which case then we would have to do like a two-part interview, if that's okay with you, because I'm selfish, and I like to have my guests on 2, 3, 4, 6 times.
I would love it, even 6 times.
Oh, yay! Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let me just start out by first saying I just feel humbly graced by your presence, and that, first of all, like I mentioned earlier, I like to host fellow authors, especially those that are from New York City. It's just truly a joy to me because you just seem so emotionally spiritual in such a way that surpasses the norm. I found that your writing is quite refreshing. Did you originate from a creative clan?
No. I have a
Really?
father who has a beautiful singing voice and a brother who is a musician and a painter. But I think that we are the rare birds in our family.
Oh, really?
Actually, my sister is also a poet, so my immediate family has some creativity investment, but the bigger family, not so much.
I'm very curious to ask you, in your own opinion, what do you feel are the most important characteristics behind two different things? First of all, the makings of a successful book, and then second of all, the makings of a prosperous author.
Oh, what great questions those are. Would that I had a crystal ball, I'd be able to give you the perfect answers. I think that a prosperous author, and you really need to define before you even start out what prosperous would look like to you, because you need to be able to aim for something specific. Many of us starting out say, I just want to be a rich and famous author, and that's not really enough specificity to go by. I feel already like a very prosperous author because in the time that my book has been out, people have said the most wonderful, wonderful things about it. It's been reviewed well. It's been received well. And I have a wealth of people who are talking about it to others, and that feels very like that makes me really prosperous. If what you're talking about is monetarily, I think it's a really tough market. But I think that the publishing industry is changing because it has to change to recognize that there are books on demand now and that there are online radio programs and that the typical way that we've done business in the past doesn't work anymore. So it may be possible that down the road people can look again at the possibility of being prosperous without having to sign a contract with a big publishing house. The big publishing houses are mostly out of reach, I think, for the average author. And as far as the book is concerned, I think that the more we know what people are looking for and the more we can find that inside ourselves such that we can represent it, the more prosperous the book can be.
Agreed. 100%.
My own feeling about the way that translates in my own book is I learned things because I had my own life experiences, and the things that I learned, like about my feelings and emotions, felt so universal to me that as I talked to people about what I was learning and studying, they encouraged me to write a book. And so I knew that that was a subject that was not unique to me. I knew that whatever had to be my own experience with my feelings and emotions across the board had to be something that would resonate with other people as well.
Of course.
So I think it depends on the connections that you can make.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. Did you get your, what I call the writing bug or your passion for writing at a young age, or was this something that just kind of startled you and thought, oh my gosh, this is really what I want to do?
I started writing diaries when I was 13 years old. And
really?
That grew into journals, and my journals are expansive. They're not just about what I'm doing and thinking and that kind of stuff, but they're also about what I'm experiencing out in the world and what I'm reading that is particularly poignant or upsetting or disturbing to me. So everything goes into my journal. And then I spent some years when I was just contributing like op-ed pieces and play reviews and things to local newspapers in the Hudson Valley in upper New York State where I was living at the time. And it wasn't really until after my life experience, which I talk about in the book, happened, that it became clear to me that I needed to put it out there in a book form.
And if I were to ask you two things, because authors always intrigue me because I'm an author myself, so my process, my style, the way I do things, how I handle myself might be different from yourself, let's say. Two things. I don't envision a woman like yourself gets writer's block very often.
Well, I was very lucky. I learned a way to deal with writer's block that has really worked for me. I once read that if you turn off or cover, in the old days of computers you could turn off the monitor and keep typing, which I think is not so easy to do now with the newer computers. But if you cover the monitor so that you can't see it, you're effectively silencing your inner critic, which is totally controlling your writer's block. And if you just keep writing whatever it is you're thinking, literally the stream of your consciousness, you can eventually break through the writer's block. So no, I don't suffer with it. But that doesn't mean that there aren't mornings when I have to sit at the computer and say, I have nothing in my head. My head feels empty. I need to find out what's going on in there. And so first, it's like a warm-up exercise, before you exercise at the gym. I will just write about what am I thinking. I know I have to errands that I have to run, and I have these things going on, and I want to call so-and-so, and then gradually that passes, and it becomes a little more personal, a little more substantive, and then eventually you'll just break through to what's really going on in there. Because oftentimes, writer's block doesn't mean that there's nothing in your head, as you well know. It means that there's something huge going on, and it's trying to coalesce before you can get it out.
I agree 100%. I got a whole lot of writer's block going on. Really bad time for this. That's why I'm asking. I'm like, oh, my God. It's always when you're on a deadline. It's always when you need to get something done, so it would seem. And I'm still struggling with this right now. Now, do you, for yourself, if you could name for me someone that has moved you in their own writings, whether it be a book, whether it be a presentation you saw, has there been one out there that has been poignant in their message that just moved you in such a way that you thought, yeah, that's remarkable?
Well, some people who've written their stories have impacted me that way. I most recently read a book called Proof of Heaven, which I know is not a new book. That was written by a neurosurgeon in Virginia who had contracted viral meningitis. Maybe it wasn't viral, it might have been the other kind. Anyway, he had meningitis, and they had all but given him up for a vegetable state, if I could say it that way. And at the same time that they were preparing to end his life support, because it all happened very quickly inside of a week, he was having an amazing experience, an out-of-body experience that he remembered. And when he got done with that experience, he woke up and was perfectly fine. And so he wrote about that experience, and that to me was just extraordinary.
Goodness, how powerful. Sounds very, very moving, actually.
It is very powerful.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do. I definitely do.
I think rather than individual authors, there are just kinds of authors who will write something that touches me so deeply that I feel inspired. And that's
nice.
a wonderful feeling. I think that's the most any author can hope for.
Oh my gosh, yes. I get my inspiration from love of all different kinds. I know people think that sounds corny and hokey, but it's very true. I feel that
No,
love
it's
is a
true.
very,
You
very
can read a
powerful
magazine article that really changes something so significantly in your own mind, and certainly from the books that you read. And I have great curiosity about everything, so I read things from biographies and autobiographies across the spectrum up until quantum physics. Quantum physics takes a little bit longer to read because I don't understand most of it, but it doesn't stop me from reading it because there's something in there that is a message for me. So I'm okay with pretty much any kind of book I can find. Gardening books, cookbooks, any kind.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Now, to those that don't know, you hail from a state which has housed the likes of Alex Haley, who is, of course, from Roots fame, of course, Mario Puzo, the infamous Godfather series, and the ever-popular psychologist we've all heard of, Dr. Joyce Brothers. And that's certainly not a bad crowd to be synonymous with, my goodness.
Not bad. I would love to be synonymous with them.
Well, you're working your way there little by little by little. You're lucky because they all hail from New York City, which I, of course, my heart is in New York City, I'm telling you. I just love you guys there so much. If you could touch upon, if you feel that in any way location plays a part in terms of the career of a writer, whether it be how successful they are, meaning, you know, you're in New York City. So, I mean, there's, I'm guessing, a plethora of opportunity for a writer there. Does that make a difference, do you think?
I think it depends on the writer. It certainly makes a difference for me. I've been back in the city for about 5 years, and I was upstate in the mountains of New York State before that for about 20 years. And that's where most of my experience came from, and that's where I actually started writing the book. And one of the reasons I came back to the city was because I felt that there wasn't enough intellectual stimulation for me. There wasn't enough curiosity for me. And I had a wonderful group of friends. But outside of that small circle of friends, there wasn't very much stimulation for me. And since I've been back in the city, it seems that every conversation I have and all of the people I meet are really up to such big things. And they're not satisfied with the status quo. And they're pushing themselves, and they're expanding themselves, and they're challenging themselves. And that's the best environment for me to be working in.
Oh, I imagine so, definitely. I, of course, have visited, and I'm going to be coming, if Bridget has her way, in November to be coming to visit. And I just find your city just lovely, full of life. And I have to ask this question. How is it possible that a woman who is so intelligent, so beautiful, and has such a good, strong head on her shoulders possibly be a single in a city with such possibilities? How is that possible? Because I read your status. I'm her Facebook friend, folks, and it says single.
Yes,
what's going on? I don't get it. Help me out here. I don't get it.
I don't know,
no.
Except that I've learned about myself that what really turns me on in men is smarts. And the smarter the man, the happier I am. And so maybe the smart men are spoken for. Maybe they're in hiding. Maybe they've got issues. Who knows? I don't know what it is. There are a lot of men around, and I meet lots. And
really?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work? Really?
I don't say that it doesn't work. I say that I haven't met someone who I've really perfectly clicked with. And I was lucky enough with my husband. We clicked the minute we met, and we would have gone on forever in that way. And so I have been very fortunate to know what it feels like to be in that kind of relationship. And a lesser kind of relationship is just not enough for me.
And you deserve far better than that, obviously. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now I'm going to have to find a guy for this woman here. My goodness. You're so impressive to me on so many different levels that I always struggle with that idea, the fact that there can be successful, intelligent women who have good heads on their shoulders and are working towards a finite message, a finer purpose, and they don't have that companionship in their lives. I kind of wanted to steer right along in that way, so we kind of got to the great segue here. I'll attempt to be the modicum of sensitivity in broaching this particular subject, of course, because I know that one of the main motivators for your writing stems from the death of your younger husband. So maybe if you could share with our audience what some of your fondest memories of him are, and inclusive of what you feel his impressions would have been of your book.
Oh, God, he would have loved the book. I can start from the last question, last part of your question. He would have loved it. He was someone who was completely in my corner. He was my biggest support in so many ways. He used to tell me that a day was going to come when I wouldn't be able to be invisible anymore, and I was just going to soar, and he would be right there in the front carrying my bags. That was something he told me many times. So it was an amazing relationship. And I learned from him really about loving, about being loving, and about accepting loving, good quality loving. So in every respect, he transformed my life. We met at one of the weekend resorts up in the Catskill Mountains, which is just north of New York City, which are just north of New York City. And from the minute we met, we knew that we were together. And we were never apart one day of the 5 years that we were together before he died. And it was just amazing. I felt like a queen. I felt like I was at the top of his agenda. He was a single dad when I met him, and he had 2 sons in high school. And somehow he managed to make all 3 of us feel like we were at the top of his agenda, and no one ever felt like they were shortchanged. It was just an amazing experience for me.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Now, if that isn't something to write about, I don't know what is.
It certainly is something to write about, and maybe he's a hard act to follow, going back to your earlier question.
My goodness gracious. Have you given that thought or consideration? Because that's one thing I did want to ask you was, had you given, I don't know, any kind of realistic thought about writing about your story with him, or a story for him, or something to him outside of this particular work, let's say?
I definitely have. I have bits and pieces of a manuscript that I've yet to pull together, but I'd love to be able to do that. I kind of thought that I would do that a little bit down the road when people were familiar with me and my writing, so that they would be interested in reading about that rather than starting with that.
I understand. Now, I want to just, before we start actually talking about the book itself, let's pull this aside and just kind of break things apart. I'm always curious to ask those individuals, like, for instance, yourself. I'm assuming that you've gone out and you've done book signings and you've done public events and things like this. How do you find that people respond to you and to your work? Are they receptive? Are they curious? Are they confused? What sort of feedback do you get?
It's all good. It's been fabulous. It's been astounding to
Really?
me, the extent to which people get what I'm talking about. They, what I'm hearing from them is that they relate to my story, and that my story makes it easy for them to get into the issues of feelings and emotions. And some people have told me that I've written their story in many ways, and other people have they've been so generous in in the kindness that they've shown me.
Okay. And yourself personally, do you feel as though individuals that are in the grieving process or have lost an individual like yourself, of course, in that experience, is the relatability factor stronger in that regard, or do you feel that your audience is spanned all the way across the board?
I think it's across the board, because the love story part is just a small beginning of where the book goes. It's there to set the scene in this book. It doesn't have all the fabulous anecdotes that the bits of manuscript that I referred to earlier have. And there are so many stories, as there are with everyone's lives. And so they read that, they have a sense of who I am, where I'm coming from, and then they're interested in some of the other issues that I raise in some of the other chapters. So people are interested in love, or in anger, or in fear, in the possibilities for people who we really are in the world if you look at reality and consciousness and you think about those issues. So everyone seems to be able to hang on to something, and the vast majority of the people who I've talked to, who've read the book, are not people who have experienced the kind of loss that I have.
Oh, okay. Now, in this process that you engage in, meaning there's the writing process, bringing the product to life, and then, of course, obviously interaction with the crowds or meeting people or fans, etc. What's the favorite part for you? Is it just, you know what, I like the writing, I'm less in the whole press and promotion thing? what is that like for you? What would you pick as your main favorite?
Well, I have a mission, actually, for this book. The mission for this book is really the larger mission for this part of my life, which is to find a way to touch people and inspire them to take off the headsets and talk to one another about the things that we have most in common as humans. Because what I've learned from the science of our brains is everything they do to have us connect with other human beings, because that's for the survival of the species. And what I know is that when we talk together, even over the phone, but very much more so when we talk in person with one another, eye to eye with one another, something is happening electromagnetically that is connecting us to each other, that is investing us in one another's well-being, in one another's lives. And that, for me, is a doorway, a possible doorway into breaking down some of the fear and prejudice that we have about one another.
Ah, very true. Very, very true, actually.
My big mission.
Ah, and you do it so very well, I have to say, and you're doing it very successfully, obviously, because I had no idea who you were. I didn't know what your concepts were about. I knew nothing, and then the lovely Dana Humphrey comes along one day and says, you have to meet this woman. You have to talk to her. Absolutely wonderful interview. And she's 100% right. I mean, she associates herself with such lovely people who are well-versed, who are well-established, who are very, very, very good at what they do. And I'm proud to say that I have you with me. Yay! Just had to throw that out there.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. That's fine. Now, relative to the book, now others have proclaimed that the book, which is Why Do I Feel This Way, what your feelings are trying to tell you, is jointly therapeutic, as it can serve as nourishment to both the mind and the body. Now, have these observations fell along the lines of your ultimate goal or purpose? Is that truly what you wanted to accomplish?
Well, the book is really just the beginning of that, and so I cannot say that I've accomplished it yet.
Okay.
But I think that because of the way the book is being received by a broad variety of people from different cultures, different age groups, different, personality types,
sure,
that I'm encouraged that I can keep going with my plan, my world plan, if I can be so bold, and have a reasonable expectation that down the road I can make a contribution in that direction.
Sure, certainly. And do you think that it's realistic for each particular individual, irregardless of being a writer, of course, and I've always talked about this too, is it important to set those realistic life goals, or like some of us, like me, I have a huge passion and I say the sky's the limit, so there really is no goal. It's just kind of like we just keep going and setting the bar higher. Is that idealistically important, do you think, for individuals, for their own well-being?
That's a good question. I'm loath to answer that it's just yes, that it really matters that we have a particular goal in mind, because that lets out a whole lot of people who don't have a particular goal in mind, who haven't yet set a goal, who don't really know, who are just curious and are just exploring. And I don't mean just isn't to minimize that, because that's critical. I don't think that you can get to a goal until and unless you do the exploring and you express your curiosity and you try out everything. I think the sky always has to be the limit. And I think that as you're looking around at the sky being the limit, you sometimes get to places along the way where you narrow it down to something that matters very much right now. It never mattered to me before to have the goal that I have now, to get people talking together about what it means to be human. That happened as I was writing this book. It wasn't in my mind when I started writing this book, but there it was at the end of the book. So, and I've had other goals along the way that have been equally important at the time. So I think that under the heading of the sky's the limit, there are always things that you want in particular to accomplish. I think for you right now, and I'm going out on a limb here because obviously we've not met, but it's really important to you to be the best mom you can be. And that will probably continue to be a great, huge goal for you. And certainly that is one of the biggest goals that there can be, to raise a truly wonderful, fabulous human being, and to look at that human being as they grow and say, I see what I've put into that person. That's amazing.
Oh, that's very true. Actually, that's a huge goal of mine. That's always the number one goal besides the writing and the passions that I carry. I believe that you need to emulate passion for every element of your life, your children, your friends, your family, your career, and if you don't, you're not living, and you're not living right every single day, I can tell you that. But I do have one true passion that, I have one more goal, and I'm trying to, and I'll be very candid, because if anybody watches my page, they already know this. I'm on a mad hunt, and I've even developed an entire another radio show, all under the guise of getting one dinner date with Kiefer Sutherland. Huge goal. Had this goal for 2 years. I'm killing myself here. 2 years just to get one dinner date. I got his mom on the show. I'm about to have her. So I'm getting one step closer. I'm very excited. I mean, and I don't want to sound like a stalker. It's very exciting, because people just look at me like I'm actually literally like cuckoo insane, and I'm like, no, actually, I have goals, and yes, is it a dream? Yes. Is it crazy? No, not in my field, because when you're in radio and you interview celebrities and things, I was very moved by his work and inspiration, and it inspired me to start an entire show just for Canadians, and that in part was the work of him and his mother. So, I'm not unrealistic, and I'm not a kook. I know he's not going to come to Wisconsin and marry me, although I'm open to options here. So, I try to keep it a little bit. Well, of course you do, because you never know when opportunity is going to come along, clearly. I mean, especially in our field, it's a catch-22. I mean, you can write a beautiful piece of work, and people could be like, oh, my God, she's so amazing, and I'm so impressed, and it's so lovely. And, it goes nowhere. You make no money. Nobody reads it. Nobody hears it. And, for me, it isn't so much about the money. I think most of us authors that are true to our passion, really, at the end of the day, I don't aspire to be rich and famous. I aspire to touch and move people, and I inspire people to listen and get some happiness or gain something like that spiritually for themselves. I know that sounds a little strange, but it's very true.
I think I share that goal with you.
Woman. Yay! We're going to become very steadfast friends, although you're going to kill me, because I do have to tell you that I have to go. We're into the first half hour. We're getting into this great spiel, and we have to go. Tell me something. Can we have a date again tomorrow? We can. Wow, that was immediate.
Yes,
well,
I think we
have to ask it twice. Yes.
I think we can. Hang on. Let me just check for a second.
Okay.
Because
you go ahead and check.
Yes, I think we can. Do you want to do it at 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock your time?
You know what? Let's do 1 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock my time, because then I have a 4 o'clock interview and a 5 o'clock interview. So now I'm doing 3 tomorrow. This is I'm getting really excited. I can't stand this. I can't. Now, before I let you go, I'm going to just throw this out here so everybody can listen. I'm going to repeat this tomorrow. Social media-wise, Dina, of course, is on Facebook, www.raisinghealthyvoices.com. She's on Twitter at @DWVoices. Amazon and Barnes & Noble is where you can find her work. Did I miss anything?
No, you got it all. I do have a blog at my website.
Oh, you do? Okay. I want to make a note of that.
I do.
That's right. Okay. And in case everybody didn't hear that, she has a blog on her website. And look for her on Twitter and, of course, on Facebook. And I have a ton of more interesting questions for you. And then tomorrow we can just blab and blab and blab. And even if you want to just blab for another hour, I'm really excited about that. Because to me, this is just, oh my gosh, I'm so very excited. Yes. And thank you for being so cooperative. And thank you for being so understanding. I'm sorry. It's just, to those that listen, or most of the people that listen to my show already know, with my son being 8 and him having the seizure disorder, it's, it's very, very, it used to be very normal. And now the norm is, nope, we're having problems, got to go to the doctor, got to call the doctor, got to switch meds. This is something we're not used to yet, and I'm not used to yet. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's not an ideal thing to have to tell a guest, but that's my first calling, and that will always be my first calling. That's probably why I'm going to be broke and never really famous, but I don't really care.
Well, and I want to thank you for working to be a great mom, because that is the most important thing you can be doing.
It is. It's very touching. It's very moving, and I think I'm very, very blessed. Oh, my goodness. I'm very blessed, and I'm very fortunate, and I have been very fortunate to at least get 30 minutes with you. Now, tomorrow, let's shoot for like 45 minutes or an hour. How's that?
Okay. And you want me to call you at 2 o'clock my time?
We're having you call in 2 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock my time. Did you hear that, folks? 1 o'clock Central Standard Time tomorrow. Me, Dina Wilcox, date number 2. I love it. That's wonderful.
Thanks,
all right, sweetheart. I'll let you go till tomorrow, dear.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Goodness, I don't know why that keeps beeping at me and making that noise. Just to reiterate, Dina is on Facebook, www.raisinghealthyvoices.com. Twitter at DW Voices, and our work can be found on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So sorry that we have to cut out early today, but like I said, I'll be making up for it. We have a 1 o'clock with Dina tomorrow, then I have 2 more guests tomorrow, one at 4 o'clock, one at 5 o'clock, and very quickly, very, very, very big shout out and thank you to Dana Humphrey for putting myself and Dina together. We look forward to talking to you all tomorrow. Thank you.
What you doing? Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal. I pronounce you. By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really? Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal. I pronounce you. By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really? Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.